All right, let's roll here. Thanks for being here. Quick recap on Virginia Tech. Big win on the road. That's a tough place to play. It's the first time I've been there. It's a good atmosphere. I thought our fans, they came, they stayed. That was a lot of fun there at the end, getting the Black Diamond Trophy, and it'll be here for the foreseeable future. Proud of our guys. Thought we had a good plan in all three phases. Thought they handled adversity really well. Thought they handled the short week well. And it was a complete win. We did some really positive things in all three phases. Our social media people got ahead of me yesterday, but I'll kind of talk about why the guys won awards this week. Casey Legg, obviously 4 for 4. He outscored Virginia Tech by himself. Really some timely kicks, and he's done a better job getting lift on the ball. Defense player of the week was Jacoby Spells. We've been talking about making plays, and he was aggressive, jumped in front of the ball there, and really clinched the victory with the pick six. Offense player of the week was C.J. Donaldson, 23 for 106. Had 3 receptions, had 2 really nice blitz pickups. He continues to be a high-end player. Offensive lineman of the week for second consecutive week was Zach Frazier. And assignment-wise, he was perfect. Grade out 100%. Had almost double-digit knockdowns. He's playing at a really high level. I know it's hard sometimes for fans and to really get a good understanding of what the center's role is, but he's playing at a really, really high level. Blue-collar guys, try to give those awards to people that kind of do some of the behind-the-scenes work. And this week, Jordan Jefferson, kind of mirror what I was saying about Zach. JJ's playing really well inside. He's strong. He's getting movement. It's making it difficult for people to run the football. And then Doug Nestor was the other blue-collar award winner. That's an emotional game for him. I haven't been in that situation, but I can imagine. And he's really played two really good football games versus those guys in the last 2 years. He played high level. He graded out at the second highest offensive lineman. And then our Juice Award for on the sideline, Riley Collins. He's a guy that we're excited about. And then Scout team guys, Victor Wickstrom on offense, Harry Hilbert on defense, and then C.J. Cole on special teams. And I wanted to make a note of, I know our scout teams have done a great job preparing the guys that have played, in particular the last 2 weeks. So appreciate those guys. Kind of flip the page over to Texas. Look forward to Saturday night down in Austin. It seems like night games all around this year, so not a big a deal since we have kind of an open weekend after this, but it'll be a late or early morning, I guess, getting back. A lot of respect for that brand in the team. Start with offense. I think it starts with Sark. I think he's as good a play caller as there is in college football. Quarterback, whoever plays, they're going to play at a high level at quarterback. I think Hudson Card has played really well. Been watching him since high school, played at Lake Travis, one of the best high school programs in the country. He could have gone anywhere in the country. I think he's a really good player. He played well last year when he was healthy as well. If viewers plays, I thought he played extremely well early on against Alabama, obviously highly regarded. So whoever lines up at quarterback, they're going to be good. All right, so I think it's pretty simple there. So if y'all ask questions about that, that's kind of how I'm going to answer it because that's what I believe. Running back, Bijan Robinson, I think, is probably as good or better than any college football player in the country. And that whole room's talented. Roshan Johnson has played there. Obviously, a quarterback in high school. They're using him a lot in the Wildcat right now. He's a physical runner, one of their best special teams players, which I think says a lot about him. And then Keelan Robinson is a guy that can make you miss. And so that running back room, and Sark's doing a good job. He played all 3 of them together quite a bit last week. He's doing a nice job using those guys. Tight end is a really good pass receiver in Sanders. He's a great athlete. And then you have Worthy. Worthy was freshman All-American last year. He can take the top off of it, can really run. And I think Whittingham is really probably underappreciated. He's strong. He's fast. He's great after the catch. He's a really good player. I really respect his game. I like his game. And their O-line is improved. They're young up front, but they're doing some things, and Sark's put them in a good position to be successful. So really a tough offense to prepare for. They motion, they shift, multiple weapons, really at each skill position. So defensively, they have a lot of veterans. playing at a much higher level than when we saw them last year. I think it starts up front. They go 6 deep at defensive tackle, and that's just not heard of. But, I mean, they've got 6 guys that are plus Big 12 players. Most teams in our league are dealing with 3, maybe 4, but they've got 6 and several NFL players within those 6. And so that's the biggest, probably challenge is those guys in the middle. They're playing the run at a much improved rate. I think Overshawn, who played a little bit against us last year, but he's really active. He gave us a lot of problems down there in 20. He's long. And I think both corners are playing well. Jameson's been there for a long time. They got the kid that transferred from Ohio State. Those guys are playing well. And then special teams, kind of to finish up, schematically they do a lot. And they're really well coached. They got their best players on special teams, great team speed, talented returners. Worthy is their punt returner. If he doesn't go back there, Jameson goes back there. And Jameson's been a kickoff returner and a punt returner for really his entire career there. He's dangerous with the ball. Kickoff return, they've got Roshan Johnson and Keelan Robinson back there. And so the guys that can take it the distance. So I think our coverage unit our coverage units are going to have to be on point. And then I think they blocked the most punts in the country last year. So they're going to come after that, and they've got some speed that they use on those units. So kind of wrapping it up, injury-wise for us, Charles Woods will be out. I think most everybody else should be available. So with that, I'll take questions.
So, Neal, with all that said about Texas, keys for you guys, anything different? What do you get?
About the same. I mean, I'll say up here, Greg probably say the same thing. If we hold on to the ball, we can stop the run and run the football. We got a chance against anybody we play. And I think that that's going to be the case. Our leagues, it's tough. So I think it's getting some respect nationally now. But if you look at it 1 through 10, it's there's no layups on that card. And I think anybody has an opportunity to beat anybody. And so for us, it's going to be turnover margin, winning that, being able to run the football, which we've done, and being able to stop the run. If we can do those things, then we've got it. Then we feel good about it.
Coach, you were talking about the Texas quarterback situation.
I think a lot of people would like to have their situation. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to shed any tears for them.
Absolutely. When a team kind of goes through something like that mid-season, whether it be injuries or whatever, coaches will kind of tend to play cat and mouse with it, in a sense.
As far as who's playing, who's not playing?
Right, yeah, not to tip their hand, so to speak. I guess what my question is, have coaches turned that into an art form?
I don't know. I think probably people give us too much credit. Usually good at very few things. I think if it's both those guys are similar. Obviously, I don't coach them every day. I've seen the recruiting film. I've seen them when they've played. We obviously played against Card last year some, but he wasn't full speed, so I don't know if that's an accurate depiction of him or not. But know his high school coaches, and so I know how he was kind of taught in that system coming up, and have a lot of respect for them. And so there's probably more similarities between those two than differences. So it's not like if you have a real runner and a real thrower, and there's a stark difference. Some of that, but how we prepare is not going to be much different, whether depending on who plays.
Kind of a flip side is, you being the opposing coach, what lengths do you go to maybe try to find out? What
the quarterback? No, I mean they're as well covered as any team in the country. So I mean, I don't know. You'd have to ask Sark. I bet he has a hard time holding secrets down there. But I mean, I don't know. That's my guess. I don't know that.
New offensive line development. I mean, obviously it's been a work in progress for years. Not that it's the finish line yet, but just explain how that has progressed.
Think about it. How many? We're 4 years in now. How many times y'all asked about it? You know what I mean? And it's very similar in the approach that we took at Kentucky when I was the offensive coordinator. We came in and we had a less than ideal situation, and we really chose to kind of be a development group there. And then the late John Schlarman, even after I went to Troy, continued that. And if you look at what they've done from an offensive line perspective, they've recruited, they developed, and now they've played really well for an extended period of time at Kentucky. And we're really mirroring that here. It was less than ideal when we got here. Outside, Colton was obviously a really good player. And we went in on the development, and we played young, and we took some lumps when we were young. And now some of those lumps that we took, and there was a lot of growth there, and now we're reaping some of those benefits, and it's gone from a weakness where it's a strength of ours. We feel like that's a real strength of ours. We felt like that was going to be the case going into the year, and that's played out. Now we have to continue as we get into the heart of our conference schedule. But and we feel like that we've recruited at a higher level, and those guys are developing, through Matt Moore and through Mike Joseph and his crew, and we feel like we're not to the finish line yet. Our depth's not where we want it to be. And so we're probably a year away from that, but we feel good about the progress we've made.
To his point, you're averaging, I think, about 220 a game without a running quarterback. Most balanced you've been, you think, since you've been here?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think we've got better, as far as what our answers are, too. You don't have to have a runner to be able to run the football, but you've got to be able to create edges. You've got to be able to have some things in the screen and RPO game. You've got to be proficient in the play action game. And so, and you got to have skill players. And I think that matters, And so, I think it's been a progression. It's not just the O-line, it's not just the running backs, it's not just tight ends. I think it's kind of all the pieces together, and schematics plays a role of it too.
Much has kind of been made nationally, kind of started here too, about the horns down celebration and the conference's clear feeling about that. Any message to your team going into this game?
Nah. I put zero thought into it, really. I'm more every time Greg Burks talks about it, I'm more confused than I was before. So and I think he's probably about tired of talking about it. No, I may mention it before we leave the hotel on Saturday. That's it.
You talked about playing those young guys last week. The secondary, obviously, Jacoby won player of the game. How did he do other than that big play? And is there room for him to continue to grow?
Yeah, I think he gave up one completion. Played a deep ball really nicely. He's only going to continue to get better. He just learned how to prepare. He's learning how to play. Much as he only played that position 2 years in American Heritage. He was a receiver. We offered him as a receiver before he even moved over and made the move to DB. So he's going to learn. He's going to get better. But athletically and length and strength and be able to have explosion, he's got what we want. And you have to get comfortable when you play young people. You got to be comfortable with some mistakes. And so that's kind of where we're at. But he's going to continue to play, and I think he'll continue to improve as well.
You mentioned that it's hard for fans to understand what Zach Frazier as a center does. Explain to fans or to me. What
so,
title?
Yeah, well, I think that we put a lot of responsibility on him, and from front identification to he's really well prepared. So we spent a lot of time with him, how we're going to ID the run game, how we want to pick up the blitzes this week. So he's really an intelligent football player. And then what he does is we're getting the right people. We're getting hats on the right people. And then what he does, he's really strong, and so we can man some things with him that a lot of other teams can't, where they're having to double. We can man, which allows us some opportunities with guards and tackles to double. And so that's in the pass protection and in the run game. And he wins a lot of one-on-ones. The game, and I say this to our players a lot, there's 22 players on the field, but it's really decided by a lot of one-on-ones, and he wins his one-on-ones a lot.
I think it was 2 years ago, he had a game where he had two snaps in a row that were bad, as I recall. How did he handle that? I mean, he isn't used to too many mistakes.
Yeah, no, I think the Oklahoma game last year, that was a tough deal for him, and there's a lot of things that go into it. Loud, I think that it was a learning experience for us because we fixed some things we were doing cadence-wise, and but I think it was a growth opportunity for him. I think anybody that gets to a really high level, which I would vehemently argue that he is playing at an extremely high level. So I think anybody that gets to that high level, there's some growth there. There's some adversity that you have to go through, and I think that was part of it for him. He had another game when he was a true freshman playing guard where I can't remember. I think it was at Oklahoma State maybe early in that COVID year where he got beat on a couple things, but he went from Fairmont Senior to Oklahoma State. That's a big jump, and that's not a knock on Fairmont. It's just that's a big jump. I don't care where you play high school football. It's a big jump. And so he's had some adversity. He's had some opportunities where he's had to learn. And just like any great individual in any craft, he's learned from that, and he's playing, and he's played through it, and he's gotten better because of it.
Teams are starting to take away Bryce. Are you happy with where Caden has developed as your other guy?
Well, I think that Caden's played like the last 3 weeks. He's played how I thought he would probably play as a sophomore. And didn't play his best week 1. Again, kind of the same thing I was just telling Bob. I think it was a learning point for him. And so he's gotten better. He and Bryce have both been a big part of the run game, and those kind of pieces work together. And so Bryce got a little bit more attention last game, and he can play better too. He'd be the first to tell you he didn't. That wasn't his best game either. And so he'll bounce back. He'll play better this week, but they're very complementary off of each other. And then what I think you'll see if then Sam and Reese and those guys are going to start getting some more opportunities as well.
You were saying the running back Robinson could be one of the best players in the country. What are you seeing there that makes you think that?
Well, I'll start with what I think is really impressive about him. Okay, just following him. Kind of as a fan, and then paying attention to how he handles the media, how he's handled himself, how he handled that injury at the end of last year, and then from an unselfish standpoint, man, he really blocks well in pass protection. They use him as a lead blocker, and he does really well. They split him out at wide receiver, and you can tell that he's like in different empty things, and you can tell that he takes coaching and he runs the routes the way a true wide receiver has, and he doesn't give up on runs. He had a huge run on us, I think, down there in 20 when he was a freshman. That had been his freshman year, correct? Where we thought we had him bottled up, and man, he came out the back door and hit a big one on us. And he did that like twice last week versus Texas Tech. And so, he's inside runner, outside runner, has the speed to hit a home run, power to run inside. He can pick up the blitz, all right, as in pass protection. He can be a lead blocker, and he's a great pass receiver, whether he's in the backfield or out wide. So, like, that's 5 a player running back, right? And I think the kid's special.
Justin Johnson's development for you guys in the game he played this past week, would you
he was good last spring. He was good in fall camp, and so really not surprised. We felt good about him and Tony. We didn't really know because CJ's a true freshman. We liked what he did in fall camp, but obviously CJ's proved to be a plus player. And those other two guys, like Tony, played really, really well on that long drive. The second drive of the game, I think we went 19 plays, had to kick a field goal, but Tony had some big-time runs right there. Probably would have scored if it wasn't for a face mask penalty. And so I think all 3 of those guys, we'll continue to use all 3, and whoever's got the hot hand will play more, but we'll use all 3 of them.
We talked about last week about CJ and needing to get more touches, needing to maybe work on that conditioning to get more touches with all the success he's had. What's that progress?
Well, we got the ball to him, 26 times? I don't know if he'll get 26 carries or 26 touches every week, but his conditioning was better. It was a little cooler. He, along with the whole team, will be tested down Austin. It's going to be warmer. It's going to be warmer at game time than it's here all week, So, but, yeah, he's getting better. We've emphasized that really going back to the Pitt game. And it takes a little bit to get in shape. and he's 240 plus, so it takes him a little bit longer than some people. So, but no, I was pleased with his level of conditioning. I thought he showed some toughness finishing the game, and yeah, I think I don't know if he'll get 26 touches, but we'll continue to get him the ball.
How much does your approach to running the ball and running backs change with Justin Johnson stepping forward?
Yeah, not really. We were going to play all three. We've been intentional about playing all three. If you look back in the first half, I think of every game we've played all three, and we'll continue with that. We may look at some multiple running back packages down the road. Especially if all three of them continue to run the ball effectively and are unselfish. So, but it really doesn't. Happy for him, but he did show that. And like I said, we weren't necessarily surprised that he ran the ball well down at Virginia Tech because we'd seen that in camp. In camp and in spring ball.
Is punting so difficult now for returners because punters are so good at it?
Yeah. That win the other night, I know I talked about this after the game, is man, I played in Lubbock. I coached in Lubbock for 3 years, and that's a really difficult win situation. But the other night in that stadium, really just an odd wind. It was almost knocking the ball. I don't know if this makes sense, but it was really blowing hard toward our locker room, but it was almost blowing down at you. And so, and then their punter at Virginia Tech is really good. He's averaging 50, almost 50 yards. And so, yeah, the short answer is really difficult the other night. I think returning punts is the hardest thing in football. It's like hitting on the first tee, right? You got people lined up and all eyes are on you, and the ball now with the Australian guys, and that ball's wobbling a bunch of different ways and spinning a bunch of different ways. All the stadium lights are different, and so I in my opinion, catching punts is if not the hardest, it's one of the hardest jobs in the game of football. Now, with that being said, we've got to be better. We've put two on the ground. We've got to be better. And so, I forget what the exact question was, Mike, but
like punters are so good at it. They have so many clubs in their bag, so to speak, that it almost seems like just catch it is the job now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a good analogy. Clubs in your bag. You got and it used to be too where pro style punt is you punted from the same location all the time, and the ball was basically hit down the middle every time. Or you could really read the hips of the punter as far as what direction. But now with all the Australians, they punt across their body all the time. And so you're talking about covering 53 yards all the time. And, for you all that played baseball, you all know this, when your eyes start moving, and if you're playing in the outfield and you go back, and your eyes are moving, it's a little harder to catch the fly ball, and it's the same with a punt. And so it's difficult. Yes, what you're asking is I agree with you. It's definitely harder to catch, and the punters have gotten better. They spray the ball, and something that doesn't get talked about is the rotations. You can kick it where some of them drop it and the ball kicks backward end over end. Some of them go forward end over end, and then you got spirals,
Coach,
A lot of golf analogies there.
yeah, absolutely. It's hard to follow that up.
Yeah.
Coaches have pretty much stayed out of the whole realignment game. But
As will this one.
yeah. But if this is the last time West Virginia plays Texas, does that, on a personal level, does that bring anything?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. Honestly, it's a conference game. I think it's been pretty good games while both of us have been in the Big 12. I think our fans like going down to Austin. It's a cool venue to play at. I'm kind of like whatever. If I was going to go to Austin, go to 6th Street and watch some live music, but I'm going to be probably staying up in Round Rock, and I didn't even look at the hotel we're staying at, but it's not like I'm going to be down there. I'm kind of indifferent toward it, really. And that's not a knock on them. Just it kind of is what it is. They lay out the schedule, and we go play them.
In regards to the offensive line, mixed and matched a little on the right side. Is there a particular five that's graded out the best?
We've just been rotating. I think if the snaps, Hubbard's played a little bit more last game Yates may have played a little bit more the game before that, but we just kind of rotated him. Jordan is getting really close to being full speed, so we'll see how that goes. He may be a factor in there as well. He's really been slow with a lower injury, but he's dressed the last 2 weeks. We just didn't feel like he was 100%, so we went with those other guys. We'll see how he looks today and tomorrow in practice. But we've been rotating those right tackles basically every series.
Well, you're getting about 20 more snaps a game than the other team. I'm guessing that's indicative of good things, but plan for you just to, I don't know, not to get 20 more snaps a game, but were there certain ways to play and be productive too? You're not just snapping the ball, you're gaining yards, getting points.
It's the I think when you have success around the football, you're obviously making more made first downs. We'd probably like to be a little bit more explosive, so there's a little bit of trade-off there. We haven't probably had as many big plays as we would like to have. When you have those big plays, you score a little faster. But we have been productive in the run game, so we've been able to make made first downs. I think that really helps. It's a payoff for your defense.
You mentioned right tackle. Jaquay's play seemingly is he
Getting
developing
better. Yeah, I think both those guys are getting better, really. Have you noticed them? That's how you know if they're getting better. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's I think they're both been pretty solid in the run game. They're getting better in pass protection. Pretty good defensive ends we played last week, as far as from a pass rush standpoint, and I thought they hung in there and did well.
You talked about a lot how Texas is going to emphasize and be really good potentially in the return game, and we know you're certainly not pleased with what happened early in the Townsend game. Are you going to bring that up? Is that film that you could watch in terms of issues on that return, or is this a totally different animal here now dealing with Texas?
No, they use very similar scheme that Townsend used. And so I'm sure they watched that and if Townsend can score a touchdown, then we got a pretty good opportunity. Now, so we're going to focus on our kickoff unit this week without question. I think they've ran upwards of 8 different kickoff returns, which is unique. But most people don't run that many, so you can tell that they're investing time in it. And then any time that you have 2 of those guys back there that can change the game in a second, whether it's Keelan or Roshan, those guys, we have to work that. That's the first snap on defense, and we can't allow explosive play to start the series.
Texas Tech, I think, had 100 plays against them last week.
Yeah.
Is that the best formula for success to counteract that offense that Texas is
I thought it worked for them last week. I think Joey went for it. They were 6 of 8, something like that. Now, some of it was when they had to stay in the game, right? But they did a good job of running their quarterback. The quarterback played well. And they got in the red zone a bunch of times too. 100 plays is a lot. You don't see that because the clock rules. You see that a decent bit when the clock rules were different, but now the clock rules are different, so you usually don't see that many plays. It worked last week. Texas was really effective, but they didn't play very many snaps. So I'll say this in a real simple version: the fewer snaps they play, the better. You know what I mean? I don't know if we can run 100. We'll try.
Thank you. Would you rather face the team coming off a win or a loss?
I was sitting there watching that on Saturday thinking that. I don't guess it matters. You know what I mean? Either way, I think that every coach in the country faces the same difficulties right now. It's different. Motivation, tactics are different. You got outside influences, whether good or bad, that are different. And so I don't know if it matters. I don't know if it matters if we won a game, as far as going into this week. So I think it's just kind of a different era as far as I think each week's a new week. Depending on what happens down there, what happens here, a lot of things outside influence affect it. What we've got to do is we can't really worry about what their preparation's late. All we can handle is our preparation and get ready to roll. So thank y'all.